welcome to the celebration of Ivan Ronaldson. I know we're all sad today, but we're going to do our very best to have some fun today, which is what Ivan would have wanted. With that in mind, I have a minor wardrobe change to make. If you'll excuse me. Steady, ladies. So why am I wearing this truly fabulous shirt? Well, Ivan very recently, this is the picture that came up on his phone anytime he and I would FaceTime or whatever, and he decided he needed to spend some of his hard-earned cash turning it into a t-shirt and thinking of a way that he could embarrass me. How about in front of 300 people and another couple of hundred online? Personally, I think it's quite fetching, and I don't really know what the fuss is about. So, my goal today is to fill this room with Ivan's presence. Whether you're religious, spiritual, or you believe in ghosts, today I'd like to think there's a double XL size Ivan ghost floating around here today. And
that's flattering.
And he's here in spirit with us today, so we're going to have as much fun, which is exactly what he would have wanted. I'm going to do a few things that encourage a bit of audience participation, so please everyone, let's get in the right place to do this. What I want to share is, those of you who knew him might have come across this, when he had a bizarre or a difficult moment, he would kind of close his eyes and he'd shudder, have a full body shudder, something like this. That might ring true to some people. So we're going to all practice this together. What I'd like you to do is think of Ivan, think of an own big personal message, allow it to fill you up, feel that emotion, and then 3, 2, 1. All right. So as we work our way through this celebration, feel free to do this out loud. Don't think of it as heckling. Think of it as allowing Ivan to flow through you. And I did include the speakers in that. Get it out of our system and feel ready to talk again. All right. Ivan often rated his happiness at an 11 out of 10. He loved singing, he loved karaoke, and he loved other people doing karaoke. So to get us in the right place, Ivan's going to sing us a song. Minnie the Moocher from the Blues Brothers. This is an audience participation song. Those of it who know it, jump in straight away. Those of it who don't, you'll figure it out pretty quickly. The song starts right at the first chorus, so as soon as he starts singing, we're going to come back and forward with him. So those who know it, as I say, help us on quickly, and take it away, Ivan. As big as a wheel, hidey, 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 apologies for the half-naked children in that video. That's the one we had. All right, I'm going to introduce our first speakers. They have been with Ivan through the Washington journey for most or all of the 20 years that he was here. Please give a warm welcome to Haven Pell, Vern Cassin, and John Motes.
This is the kind of talk that is intended to leave you in suspense, but it won't. You are all very smart. Virtually everyone in this room knows how to change ends and when to do so. At the outset, Prince's Court was as much a co-op as a club. We decided in the early stages to recognize volunteers and sort of club person of the year. We created something called WAGYA, and WAGYA stood for We Are Glad You Are Here. That lasted until 2006, when Roz and Al Clark, who had been absolutely superb volunteers, were being returned to England by the British Embassy. At that time, we renamed the award for them because they had been such wonderful contributors to the club. I am going to read a list of prior winners, many of whom I believe are in this room, and if I may, I'd like to ask you to stand and remain standing when I read your name. Mark Philpott, Andrew Ritter, Brian Stone, Charlie Katz, Vern, Nick Domagala, Melanie Clark, me. Mistakes were made. Steve Hufford, Bob Forbes, Cecilia Forbes, Jake McCrae, Kim Jaskey, Roz and Al Clark, who I would bet my bottom dollar are watching this streaming, John and Chris Motes. John, Chris is somewhere. Ryan Carey. Ryan Carey, of course, is in the booth, still earning the award, but there he is behind the gong. Michael Doe, Pat Homer, Larry McCrae, Leslie Willard and Lee Allen, Temple Grassi, Audrey Byrne, and Ken Karpinski. Without these and others like them, we would not be where we are today. Well, I guess we get to the suspense now, which has long since disappeared. The 2025 winner of the Roz and Al Clark Award is obviously Ivan Ronaldson.
I first met Ivan 20 years ago at Haven's house while he was interviewing for the head pro job here at Prince's Court. Even then, it was clear he was a force. He was a force of energy, of knowledge, and of a vision of the game of court tennis. He was passionate not only about the history of the sport, but also about growing it, about building community, and about making every player better. When Ivan came to Prince's Court, he transformed it. Under his leadership, our club became the place people wanted to be. as an example of just growing it was with the Whitney Cup. While other players, and Whitney Cup is a tournament that goes on amongst other clubs here, other clubs had to combine their teams, but ours moved forward alone. The difference was simple. They didn't have Ivan. His force changed everything. Ivan's gift was his generosity. During matches, he would watch us from his office, offering quick but powerful lessons after his 10-minute mark. He had a way of picking apart mechanics, making small adjustments, and producing instant results. 10 minutes with Ivan could change your game. That was his force at work, the ability to see the potential in each of us and bring it out. But Ivan's real power wasn't just in developing players, it was in building a community, an atmosphere people wanted to be a part of. His force drew in players young and old, people like Danny McBride, Vern Casson-Peterson, John Patton, Ivan Blass, Adrian Camacho, and many others who not only fell in love with court tennis, but also with Ivan himself. He created a haven where people wanted to belong. And he was never alone in this work. His rotating assistants of Phil Shannon, Mark Mathias, Nino Marola, Neil McKenzie, and many others were drawn to Prince's Court not just for the sport, but to be close to Ivan. Together, they built something special and our entire community benefited. With juniors, Ivan's force was undeniable. Under his guidance, they swept the Van Allen Clothier for the first time in 25 years. But more importantly, he changed lives. He took my son Tristan under his wing, helped him through very difficult times in his young adolescent life. And then my son Noah, his mentorship went well beyond tennis. He was a confidant, a teacher, a friend. The weapon that Noah wields today, his forehand force, came directly from Ivan. All of you who have seen that, and anybody across the net, oh my gosh, is it something. But even more lasting was Ivan's steady presence during Noah's hardest moments, and for that, I'm forever his debt. Ivan was and remains a tremendous man. In court tennis, as in Star Wars, the force means strength, influence, and legacy. Ivan's force was strong, and he shared it freely. He left his mark on all of us, and it will continue to guide us. The force was strong with him.
So I just want to be clear, I never actually won the WAGO award. Ivan just put me on the board one day. There is no Ivan in this box. This is a prop. All right. I first met Ivan at the old Prince's Court. I'd heard of the game and I called to see if I could try it out. And after I'd winded my way through 14 miles of hallway and like 14 staircases and maybe Legionnaire's disease, I found this incredibly cheerful British person waiting for me. Hello, Vern. Are you here to try court tennis? He had the best hello of anyone I'd ever met. When you walked in, he would light up, and his secret was that he was actually just that glad to see you. He wanted you to know it. He had no lines in his life. Once you were in, you were in. I've never met anyone who would bring you into his family the way Ivan would. It was a superpower. He wanted you in his life. He was the best host I'd ever met. You didn't knock, you just walked in, often through the back door to avoid disturbing Christy. You got your huge hello. He would remember your drink. I don't know how he remembered 300 drinks, but he remembered your drink and he would make sure you had it. He didn't care about some social code of hosting. He just cared about you and he wanted you to be happy. Ivan loved games, and when Emily and I went over for a year every Wednesday, it was, of course, a game we were coming over to play. For us, the game was Magic the Gathering, which is a card game for nerds. Magic, as we played it, requires 6 people, and we could reliably get about 4 or 5. Fortunately, there was always at least one young person living in the basement. I can't begin to count the number of people who stayed there over the years. If it wasn't an assistant, it was one of the legions of friends that would come to stay with them. We stopped playing Magic regularly about 10 years ago, coincidentally, when our kids were born. On my last birthday, which was this April, he gave me this box. It's a box for holding a Magic the Gathering deck with our court tennis logo on it from Westwood. In fairness, I do think he charged this to the club. He was just so thoughtful. He loved you and he wanted you to know it. Ivan was an atheist, and I wanted to end with a prayer by another atheist, Kurt Vonnegut. God made mud. God got lonesome. So God said to some of the mud, sit up. See all that I've made, said God. The hills, the sea, the sky, the stars. And I was some of the mud that got to sit up and look around. Lucky me. Lucky mud. I, mud, sat up and saw what a nice job God had done. Nice going, God. Nobody but you could have done it, God. I certainly could have. I feel very unimportant compared to you. The only way I can feel the least bit important is to think of all the mud that didn't even get to sit up and look around. I got so much, and most mud got so little. Thank you for the honor. Now mud lies down again and goes to sleep. What memories for mud to have. What interesting other kinds of sitting up mud I met. I loved everything I saw. Ivan really did think that way. He loved his family, he loved his friends, he loved the people he worked with, he loved his life. He died too young, but he got more happiness out of life than anybody I know. I was lucky to have had some great memories with Ivan in the last couple of weeks. We went to a party at Katie's house. We tapped beers. I got a Shimon. I got a Hodor. We had a lesson. I ran into the wall over there, and he helped tape me up. He told me in his very gentle way that he had never seen anyone get injured in quite that way before. And the last time I saw him, my kids had a lesson with him, and we walked in and we got a huge, hello, Cassins. He really had such a great hello.
Just very quickly like to add to Vern's point. I like to think right now that Ivan's up there somewhere arguing with God about his very existence. That'll be a fun discussion. Our next speakers are the president of Westwood Country Club, Terry Clark, along with general manager Brian Stone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before I begin, I'd like to take a moment to welcome our international visitors who have traveled here from abroad to be here today. Your presence is a true testament to the friendships that Ivan built across the borders and the impact he had on the global court tennis community. We are deeply grateful that you've come here to honor him today. We are here to celebrate the life of our friend and colleague, Ivan Ronaldson. As president of Westwood Country Club, I had the privilege of working with him professionally, but I also knew him in another way, as my daughter Annie Clark's court tennis coach and mentor. And in both roles, I saw the same qualities shine through: his passion, the humor, the generosity, and that unmistakable smile and with. My story with Ivan began something like this. Once upon a time, the Washington court tennis community was looking for a new home, and Westwood's tennis bubble literally blew up. We were in uncharted territory about what we do next, and thanks in part to the Moats family, who had been valued members at Westwood for a long time, the two groups found each other. We were in uncharted territory. Where we took this, we didn't know, and both groups, I think, felt like we had a lot of potential for success, but we really didn't know where we were going to end up. Ivan was a critical part of making this partnership a tremendous success. Even before we opened this facility, Ivan was sending out emails and making invitations to get the Westwood community to come over and take a court tennis lesson. And if he didn't respond to the first invitation, he sent a second invitation. If he didn't respond to that one, he sent a third. And he always did it in just the right way because nobody was ever upset in getting the opportunity to spend time with Ivan. On the court, Ivan was remarkable. He wasn't just teaching people how to hit the ball. He was teaching them how to love the game. He had this wonderful balance of demanding and encouraging all at the same time. And he could point out a mistake and then tell you in his own special way just how badly you were making a mess of things. And then be able to come back at the same moment and encourage you to do it that much better the next time. My daughter experienced this firsthand. Annie had a long history of lawn tennis, and starting with USTA junior tennis and high school tennis, and then playing Division I tennis at Virginia Tech. I'll let Annie tell her own story because it's incredibly remarkable about how Ivan first touched her and persuaded her to take a court tennis lesson, and then what followed. The most amazing part about Ivan is he could do something that I never thought that I could do as Annie's dad. He re-energized her with regard to a racket sport. Every day when she would come in after having a lesson with Ivan, there would be something new that he taught her or something new that inspired her. But he re-energized her thrill for tennis, and in this case, court tennis. Just as importantly, he brought his energy to the entire Westwood community. And whether you were a seasoned player or just picking up a racket for the first time, he made court tennis, the sport with such a great history and tradition, approachable. So what made him special was not only his talent, but his presence. He could walk into a room, make you incredibly uncomfortable, never say a word, by just having that cheekish smile. And he always seemed to say the most inappropriate things to me at the most inappropriate times. I remember I was going up to meet Prince Edward when we opened this facility, and Ivan leaned over to me and he said, "You know what the most important quality is of a court tennis professional? It's being able to stitch together the balls of the players." That was just him. Losing him so suddenly to a heart attack is a painful reminder of how fragile life can be. And yet, in remembering him, I find myself smiling more than I expected. That's because Ivan left us with so many moments of joy and so many stories we'll keep telling, and so many lessons we've learned by just knowing him. Churchill once said, "I am ready to meet my Maker. Whether my Maker is prepared for the great ordeal of meeting me is another thing." I think that is particularly appropriate for Ivan. His legacy is not only in the trophies or the matches that he won, but in the players he mentored, his friendships he built, and the laughter he inspired. He gave us his time, his humor, and his heart, and that is something we will carry forward forever. So today, instead of saying goodbye, I think Ivan would prefer we say, well played, and if truly he had the last word, it would probably be something like, right then, try not to embarrass yourselves without me. That was his gift, to leave us laughing even in the toughest of moments. Ivan, thank you, wherever you may be, for the lessons, the laughter, and the love of the game. You will be deeply missed, but never forgotten, my friend. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Stone. I'm the general manager here at Westwood Country Club. And some of this commentary may be a little bit repetitive, but before I get to that, that beautiful wooden box would explain our $7,000 operating expense overage from March of 2025.
I justified it.
We'll take that off your performance review. I think that where we're sitting right now was a bit of a grand experiment in a lot of ways, and in a beautiful way. But Mr. Clark mentioned two incredibly tight-knit communities coming together over something that one of the communities was passionate about for 600 years and the other had never heard of. And that's a pretty remarkable thing to accomplish in retrospect. If you had to create a human being out of thin air that would make this budding relationship a guaranteed success, it would be Ivan Ronaldson. Ivan was the first team member that I've ever inherited in my career, and that was met with some angst, I will readily admit, until I met the man, and he quickly became one of my favorite teammates I've ever had the pleasure of working with in more than 25 years. This grand experiment included a period of time where we had embraced the concept and met many of the movers and shakers from the ITCW community, but there was plenty of angst because all we knew was random YouTube videos of Camden and another person playing tennis and having no idea what was going on. And there was a part where members of the board would look at me and say, okay, if this thing fails, can we put like a basketball hoop in there? Or a skating park, or I don't remember the other things. And instead, this room became the busiest and most popular amenity at Westwood Country Club. And that is because of Ivan Ronaldson. He's kind, enthusiastic, welcoming, charming, funny, patient, and an elite ambassador for the sport, which is evidenced by the dozens of folks here today grieving our dear friend who had never heard of this sport before 2022. I remember we were getting close to the grand opening and having a conversation with Ivan, saying, look, I think maybe we should chill out calling it real tennis. There's lawn tennis folks here that take a bit of exception to that. We're really trying to meld together, and he assured me repeatedly it would not be an issue and that everybody was sensitive to these things. And on day one, Vern showed up in a t-shirt that said, lawn tennis is yawn tennis. And I looked at Ivan and I said, what's that about? He says, yes, I'll take care of it, I'll take care of it. Maybe a day or two after we found out that Ivan had passed, and all of us were shocked and devastated and having all of the emotions that accompany such an event, I was walking through the locker room and ran into one of our members, Mr. Anastasi, whose son's taken up this sport passionately. And they were a group of tight-knit teenagers who Ivan mentored and brought along in this game, and they may spend as much time on this court as anyone. And Mr. Anastasi told me that Ivan had been so influential to them, and they had found out this terrible news, and that they took it upon themselves to go out, excuse me, to go out and have dinner together, a group of teenage young men, and then they came here and they played until we turned the lights off. And the way to handle such a heartbreaking event and show such maturity is yet another tribute to the type of mentor and man that Ivan was. He also told me that in each of these young men's phones, their in case of emergency was mom, dad, brother, sister, Ivan Ronaldson. That also is a testament to the type of man he is and was. I mentioned Ivan's patience earlier, which had to be one of his greatest strengths. I served a lot of years as a golf professional, teaching what I consider to be the second most maddening sport to try and teach people. And I can tell you for a fact that my dear friends and coworkers, Matt Gallagher and David McGregor and I, took up this sport only believing that we should know enough about it to be dangerous, so we could explain it to all the other people who were going to join Westwood in the future, and instead we became immediately addicted to the game. I thought about the way that Ivan treated us and the fact that he said racket back 4,000 times. I thought about the fact that 6 months into playing this sport, Ivan would sit back in the gallery watching us, and where I would have lost patience many moons ago and said things like, "What the are you doing? What is going through your mind?" Ivan would say something like, "Brian, do you think you understand the rules?" Forgiving my horrific accent, what a way to deliver bad news. If I was having a tough day at work, which happens on occasion, I always knew I could walk down to the racket center and into Ivan's office, and the hellos and the smiles that everyone's referenced already this afternoon would have an impact on me immediately. Despite my pleading him not to, he would always stand up from behind his desk and walk around to shake my hand. We could talk court tennis or not, conversations often moving to other sports, or perhaps Ivan's level of satisfaction or dissatisfaction with the later Star Wars productions. But no matter the subject matter, I would leave Ivan's company feeling better about my day without question, and I imagine that's true of every person who's here today. One of the things that I'll take from Ivan, I grab, sayings, I guess, from people that I'm around all the time, and I like how much more often I say cheers now. We miss you and we love you, my friend. Cheers.
Before I introduce the next speakers, I just want to get another little bit of audience participation going. But to do that, I'm going to need the help of Lily and Bruce, if you would mind coming up. Before the birth of crypto, there was a betting currency known as the dead ant. And I'll explain how it goes. So if I were to have a bet with Brucey about the name of this club, and I said it was Eastwood Country Club, and he said it was Westwood Country Club, we would bet, instead of money, we would bet a dead ant. The winner gets to hold this over the loser for as long as they want, and at any point, if they wish to say the word dead ant, no matter where you are in the world, you have to lie on your back, put your hands and legs in the air, and wiggle around like a dead ant. So Brucey, I think it was Westwood Country Club, you're right, so if you would like to check in on your bet.
What was that? Damn.
We have a lot of floor space here at the front, a little bit on the sides, a little bit in the middle. So I would invite anyone who's ever had a bet with Ivan for a dead ant, won one, lost one, never experienced. I was usually too smart or too cowardly, whichever way you look at it, to take on one of these bets. But I'd invite everyone to either come to the front or find a spot, and Lily is going to help us do the biggest group dead ant of all time. So please come and find a space.
Those baby Ruth.
Not yet, not yet, not yet, not yet. Everyone stand up, not yet. Stand up.
Some people may need to get down from back.
Find yourself some space. Find yourself some space. Plenty of room over here. Down the middle aisle, down the side aisles. Right, don't crowd yourself too close. You need room to be on your back with your legs in the air. Give yourself some space. Really, let's count it down.
3, 2, 1, didn't.
Thank you, everyone. That was amazing. You can now refine your seats. Okay, our next speaker's combined genetics resulted in the massive head, wild, bushy, out-of-control eyebrows, and shapely nose that we all came to love as Ivan. Please welcome the parents, Chris and Les.
Something of a surprise to us, isn't it?
Oh Lord, sorry. The big memory of Ivan as a very little boy is him standing on a table as soon as he learnt to stand, going, Ungok, Ungok, Ungok. And everybody was in the room telling everybody what to do in the only word he knew.
Well, I think you've all now got a flavour of why we were so proud of Ivan. He was an exceptional chap. A lot of people have been thanked today. I particularly want to thank those people who've come the furthest. Leas van der Zwan from France and Alistair Curley from Australia. Thank you for being here. Also, I particularly want to thank Christy for giving our wonderful boy, making it possible to be so happy as he was. I wasn't really expecting to be standing up here talking today, but as I'm here, I think it's probably worth saying that Ivan loved life. I'm not sure that he was ever going to make bones. He was always going to be the sort of guy who was burger and beers tonight, and I'll start with salads tomorrow. That was Ivan. That's who he loved, and how we loved him. How we loved him.
Thank you all. Thank you.
A time like today isn't the time to be petty, but I did tell Chris he was coming up at that point, so let's not make it about that. Anyway, I'm very excited for our next two speakers, the brothers Ben and Luke. By day, Ben is the head professional of the Queen's Club in London. By night, he's a part-time stand-up comedian. Luke is a mathematics teacher at the prestigious Winchester College in England. He runs the Debating Society and is a renowned public speaker. I don't want to put any pressure on these two, but this may be the best speech that you have ever heard in your life. Ben and Luke, everyone.
To be clear, public speaking is not my thing. Thanks, man. Ben and I are standing here to talk about our big brother. But we know full well that there are many of you here who also saw Ivan as a big brother, not least Drew. And to all of you, we want to say that we have always been very happy to share him. I was talking to Holly, my 12-year-old, about Ivan last week, and telling her how all my friends at university soon became Ivan's friends too. "Didn't you mind him stealing your friends?" she said. I replied, "He wasn't stealing them, he was sharing them and making the friendships better." Ivan never grew up. He was born in 1974, Ben was born in 76, and I was born in 1980. But in the early noughties, we overtook him in age, and he's mentally remained in his 20s. In 2005, he got bored of his now sort of grown-up brothers. Peter Pan left the UK, and in no time at all had met his Tinkerbell in America.
I think I need to go slightly off piste here, just because we've had so many lovely Americans speaking in a really nice way about Ivan, so I needed to create a kind of filter just before we start talking. We've known him since he was tiny, and we've seen him do a lot more stuff than since he did slightly grow up before he came out here, so just put that. The homemade after Ivan died was huge. But then Christy had him cremated instead, so we didn't need Your president mentioned this earlier. The gathering here has shown just how many people Ivan has touched over the years. One such person is Michael Cheery. I just wanted to tell this story because it kind of highlights how we all feel about Ivan. Michael had been playing rock band with Ivan, and Ivan had a couple, and every now and again Michael would just reach across and just flick Ivan's nipple, just to annoy him. And Ivan started getting kind of upset by this and just kind of swing his arms, and Michael Cheery is quite an agile guy, just kind of dodge underneath him. But 2 hours in, one massive heft landed, and it put Michael in hospital with 2 broken ribs and a bruised spleen. And I heard about this when Michael sent me a picture of him in a hospital bed with 2 IV drips coming into him, and a third something, I don't know what the third drip was, and he's just got this big smile. Right? It's like, well, I had that coming. It seems very sad to talk about consequences today. As we all know, the joyous life that our dear brother led ultimately, in true Chuck Norris style, in his heart having an Ivan attack. Bruce and Lily have lost their lovely dad, her husband. Luke and I, our brother. Yeah. And it's the one time it really sucks to have your brothers as your best friends. And our parents have lost a very special child. This is, of course, nowhere near the end of the list, and the outpouring of love, memories, and joy, videos, memes, and photos that you all sent is frankly astounding. The amount this man meant to you all is just epic. This is the consequence of Ivan's years of pushing people to do things they didn't know they wanted to do. This is the consequence of having passion for his job and making the people he loved happy while squeezing as much fun as he could from every single day. Christy, who's not talking today, has asked us to thank, the club for a start, for putting this here and making this happen. It's absolutely fantastic what they've done. For all the billeting, I personally want to thank John Noakes because we all descended on you last minute. And also the financial support that has actually happened over the last 10 days or so that's been coming in for Christy and her family has been absolutely astounding. To the extent, last week I actually phoned Dad. And I said, Dad, I'm thinking about faking my own death. To which Dad said, why fake it?
Ivan would turn up out of the blue for celebrations, and the victims would be overjoyed. He would fly back over the Atlantic whenever he could see his UK family. He'd stop at nothing to create a situation that meant he would win a bet before it was even made. For Ronaldson, he was frighteningly pragmatic, dragging us through the advances in technology, kicking and screaming, constantly trying to find life hacks to optimize time having fun. So many times in our lives, if he pulled off something naughty that left us baffled as to why he might have created the situation, he would smile and with a glint in his eye say, for fun and excitement. Before we both give you some of our favourite memories of Ivan, we just want to share some facts about our boy. 1. He was so much more loving than some of you might know. Here was a man who knew when to put fun aside and offer everything for the people he loved. When Christy lost her dad not so long ago, he was her rock, and he has been there for us countless times. 2, he was far more clever than many people realised. Ivan was pragmatic in his application of his intelligence, thoroughly researched the subjects that were important to his life, and was deviously sitting on a scarily good chess ranking. Apparently only 3 wins off being a Grand Master. But he had emotional intelligence too, often seeing the way through the trees for people in need.
3, he was far less cunning than he thought he was. Every day he'd try and achieve a new goal, whether it was acquiring a dead gnat, coaxing people to come out and party, or start a conversation just to wind someone up. Whenever our special Canadian friends might make some kind of comment on WhatsApp, you may not know this guy, but there's always Ivan texting me saying, say something, say something. I got the blame all the time. The thing is, we all knew what he was doing, and yet we let him because we knew how much he relished his victories. Last time the two of us went to the pub with Ivan, he assured Luke we would just have 1 beer before we headed back to a meal with the family, which we were already late for. Luke came back from the toilet. 2 rounds had been ordered for the whole table. He looked at his brothers and said, well, they're here now. 4, Ivan's hugs were the best in the world. There was something about them that just enveloped you and made you feel loved, safe, and disarmingly at peace. And now there's anecdotes.
I've had so many good times with Ivan. Most recently for me in July with my family, Ivan's family and mum, staying with our wonderful Canadian relatives. On our last night together, he persuaded us that we should do karaoke because we hadn't done it at all in the 2 weeks we'd been together. He pops to the car, and a minute later reappears with microphones, leads, iPad stand, the whole works for portable karaoke. He knew it was coming. We had a fantastic night, and many of you, actually, yes, you will have seen the video of him singing Minnie and the Moocher. I didn't know that was going to be on, but yeah. What you might not have seen was a video of Ivan and Christy singing Chasing Cars together, the whole time looking at each other lovingly. Yes, Ivan loved to have fun, but his family was always his number one. But my first memory of a fun night out with Ivan goes back to December 1992. We went, just the 2 of us, to my first ever gig. We went to see the controversial British band, Carter the Unstoppable Sex Machine, at the Brixton Academy in London. Ivan had convinced Mum and Dad that he would look after me. And he did, in his way. It was a night of other firsts too. My first ever cans of 8% special brew, my first time crowd surfing, and perhaps more importantly, my first realisation that despite the 6 and a bit year age difference, Ivan and I were always going to be the best of friends. To be clear, in 1992, Ivan was 18 and I was 12.
the last time I left the country was to come here to see my brother for a week. And I knew when I landed there's various things he'd get me to do, drink obviously being one of them, but the other thing he really loved to do was play online games. Weirdly, Michael Cherry's in this story again. But I knew that I'd have to do a 4-hour session of this game called Left 4 Dead, which is a horrendous game where these zombies are chasing you and they're screaming and there's different types of zombies that explode when they're next to you. And I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew it was going to happen sometime. But when I landed, we went downstairs to his basement and there were already shots waiting. And I was jet lagged, obviously, because I came that way, and we drank very, very heavily that night, which is not something I normally do. And I woke up the next day feeling dreadful, and then we went to lunch, and that whole week he wanted to take me to each of the restaurants he loved. It was an amazing week. I'm not sure he paid for it, I think he might have done actually, but he just took me everywhere, and I saw everything I wanted to see. But that night, on the second night, we went down to the basement again. I said, okay, Ivan, played some rock band. I said, I promised you I'd do this. Let's have a 4-hour session of Left 4 Dead. 3 hours in, I've killed thousands of zombies. Well, no, they've killed thousands of zombies. I've been eating just a bunch. And I find myself in a crossroads on top of a broken down car with a shotgun, screaming. And I realize that I feel like I've been there before. And I say, I've got this weird deja vu, at which point Michael and I would start laughing. Because I'd done it for 4 hours the night before. We loved our brother harder than he could force a tennis ball, and that is terrifying. We're going to be there for all those people that need that void filled, especially Christy, Bruce, Lily, Drew, Alicia, and we're going to celebrate his memory today and forever. I think Jules is up next, right? And Matty might have something to say about Jules. They're kindred spirits. Jules once made Ivan the most horrendous cocktail you could ever imagine, in which the second worst ingredient was shampoo.
Our final speaker, who will deliver the eulogy, is longtime friend Julian Campbell. Now, Julian comes with a warning label. He has undiagnosed Tourette's. He had a horrific childhood. He had a truly, truly unpleasant older brother who bullied him mercilessly. A real nasty piece of... Sorry, you're here. Hi, nice to see you, but I didn't know you were coming. Welcome. Julian Campbell, lovely guy. Take it away.
Start that way. I've got another way of dealing with stress here. Okay. If I'd known Matty was going to drone on for so long, I would have kept my speech a bit shorter. The problem with coming last is a lot of people steal some of your material. Thank you. Good afternoon, my name is Julian Campbell, handicap 50.0. I will encourage heckling, thank you. The point zero is important. Very important. I will encourage heckling during the eulogy. Or positive heckling would be nice. Give it to me straight if you don't like it. Ivan apparently once mentioned to Christy that I should give his eulogy. Whether this was an ill-thought out idea, or whether he actually had some cunning ruse that would have had him chuckling for a few days afterwards, I don't know. But his stated aim was for me to keep it light and happy. He didn't want people to be upset at his wake.
So maybe he just picked the friend he knew with the least emotional depth possible. But unfortunately that might backfire, because you don't really understand how much you love someone until they're gone. And when you lose someone, a soul of the incredible caliber of Ivan's, that's enough to drill down to the deepest wells of emotion and right past that stiff upper crust. So either way, thanks, buddy. Thanks for laying this one on me. It's funny, isn't it? We, all of us these last couple of weeks, for someone so avowedly atheist, a lot of us have been looking up to the heavens and talking to Ivan through our tears. I had another line there, but Matty stole it already. Yeah. Ivan would also chuckle to himself to think of me reading any sort of poetry whatsoever, even more so a Maya Angelou poem. But here goes, and I'm going to do this in two halves, because the first half, I think, conjures up how we've all been feeling these last couple of weeks, and is a bit more bleak, and then hopefully the second half will give a little bit more positive spin on life. This is When Great Trees Fall by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly, our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We're not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. That wasn't exactly keeping it light and fluffy, I do apologise. But there is one line in there that really hits home. Our souls dependent upon their nurture. Ivan really nurtured our souls for everyone here. Ivan Oliver Ronaldson was born in Melbourne, Australia, which might explain why he had so many run-ins with the law. He was born on August the 3rd in 1974 to the lovely Chris and Leslie. And after 3 or 4 years of fledgling criminality and the birth of his more irritating brother Ben, they moved to Troon in Scotland, and where Chris continued his run as a sort of real tennis hitman, international hitman of real tennis, setting up yet another court. And from there, they moved via somewhere else, and onto his spiritual home, his spiritual childhood home, in an actual palace, just in time for the birth of the smiling Buddha of the family. I've often wondered if Ivan's endless reserves of patience and good humour stemmed from having grown up in an actual palace. Certainly couldn't hurt. And he would have been such a benign overlord to us all. We'd have had a lot of fun. I technically went to school with Ivan, and I say technically because he was a couple of years above me at Camford, and he had just been thrown out as I was arriving. Again, with the law. You can take the criminal out of Australia, but you can't take see where I'm going with. From there, he went to Reading University to study something or other, and then swiftly into the world of real or court tennis. I'm going to keep saying real tennis. I tried to say court tennis, it just keeps coming out. So in your minds, feel free to just shout out court tennis every time I say real tennis. To my knowledge, I don't think I've ever had any other gainful employment anywhere, except maybe winning at cards, which is pretty lucrative for most of the time he played. But why would Ivan need any other field? Ivan was nothing if not well considered and smart. Anyone who can score a real tennis match is smart enough, in my opinion, quite frankly. I thought you were about to dead ant me again. No, dead ants do too. But Ivan didn't just fall into real tennis. He was there because he observed other lifestyles and other options. He made a considered choice that a career in real tennis would give him and his family the best quality of life and the most joy possible. And who can deny that this man lived with the most joy possible? He coached and played and ran courts in Hampton Court, Hollyport, Fontainebleau, Jeu de Paume, Preston Hall and Washington. And everywhere he went, he was the life and soul of the party. In fact, most of the time, he just was the party. Carve called me up the other day to say that he was so confused because he'd just come to realise that he wasn't the main character in his own story. Ivan was. Where do you go with that? But this wouldn't be a proper eulogy if we didn't touch on a few of the legendary exploits. Some people have already mentioned a few. Many of them, I'm afraid, are not really fit for public consumption in present company, or any company. But I'm just going to touch on a few. He once hit the court wall of the other court so hard with a ball that he smashed what was supposed to be unbreakable glass. He once woke up in a member's bed, having completely lost his way home, and just thought he was home. Climbed on in. Another time he actually woke up in a complete stranger's bed, well, in their house, only to be woken by a screaming, semi-naked woman in the early hours of the morning, shortly followed by her irate husband, to chase him out of the house, and again, the law. On that note, actually, he was one of the few men that I've ever met who was actually happy for his wife to track his phone. at least someone knew where he was half the time, which is kind of helpful. He once spent 2 whole days researching and perfecting a fart diet so that he could stink out Shannon in the small pro shop at the Regency Court. It was a very small pro shop. Only to find that the day in question was Shannon's day off. So he had to enclose himself in his own stink for the entire day, lock the door and find reasons for members not to be able to come in. So many people here will have a competition story with Ivan. I mean, you know he loved to bet. He once bet me that he could beat me at real tennis with his left hand, completely neglecting to explain that he had played tennis with his left hand for about a year after he broke his arm. Pretty sure he won that one. His karaoke exploits were legendary. Everyone loved it when Elvis came out to play. Either out on the town or playing rock band down in his basement, along with all manner of other games that we all got up to down there, Fortnite and Left 4 Dead, and all these things. He somehow managed to persuade me that playing computer games online was a highbrow social activity. So that I wouldn't feel guilty about spending hours online playing with him. But somehow with him it was, it just made it that much more entertaining. I had, on the karaoke I had the absolute joy to see the whole family just a couple of weeks before Ivan went out with a bang. Because Ivan didn't just pass, Ivan went out with a bang. And we had an inevitable long karaoke session. And he did me the great honour of looking at me with great, just fatherly pride in his eyes to tell me I'd tried out a new song. And he said, you finally found your karaoke song. The main lyrics of the song are, son of a bitch, give me a drink. But through all these fun and games, through all these hilarity, there's been his one true constant, Christy, his darling elf. Christy, who would have seen him in all his moods and stresses and foibles, along with all those fun times. Elf, everyone here owes you a huge debt of gratitude for sharing your amazing man with us all. Your love and patience and your trust allowed him to be himself in all his glory. And that made him, by his very own admission, the happiest man he knew. So why is a lowly handicap 50.0 giving the eulogy for such a legend of the real tennis world, dressed as Zoolander? Well, maybe he didn't like you all as much as you thought. Just lay that one out there. But no, not at all. This is for Bruce and Lily. Your daddy was so much more than just a genius of coaching and sports and games. Your dad was a genius-level human being. The word eulogy comes from the Greek word for praise. Eulogy is this thing I'm kind of making a mess of right now. It comes from the Greek word for praise, and there is no greater praise than the number of people deeply affected and the outpouring of grief that has come from around the world for your daddy. We all delighted. Is that a laugh? Either way, I'll take it as a heckle. It's more like it. We all delighted and basked in your dad's love, which he gave so freely. But he loved you two and your mum the most. And every person in here and around the world will be here for you whenever you need us, in the same way that he was always there for us. Now I'll do the second half of that poem, which hopefully is a little bit more positive. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms. Slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us. They existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've got a glass, please raise it. The one and only Ivan. Shamon.
Clearing up your mess here, Jules. That's about it from everyone here today. Thanks everyone for coming, showing your support. It's just amazing to see so many faces, so many awful outfits. Didn't quite get the max of cargo shorts and then sort of orangey yellow shoes to go with it, but we'll work on our Ivan looks. There's a few other people out there who've worked tirelessly over the past couple of weeks to help Christy and the family, help get this event in order. I'm not going to say everyone, but just you know who you are. Thank you so much for all that you've done. There's food and drinks up there. I think there's a special tab that Julian signed for, so all the visitors, it's on Julian. Please go up and share all your stories. If anyone wants the end of that story that Ben had, he'll be up there too. So thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for honouring Ivan. Thank you.